Hey Hylians! So, as I'm sure you're all very aware of by now, at E3 this year Nintendo finally gave us some more news on Breath of the Wild's sequel, in the form of an all-new trailer. And this trailer was pretty short, again like the first, but at the same time it was packed with all new footage that we hadn't seen before. So even though it's short and sweet, we Zelda fans have a lot to look into. For those of you who might not know, Breath of the Wild's sequel originally started as just more DLC for Breath of the Wild. But the team working on the game had so many ideas that they thought making an all-new sequel would be the better option. This is something I want to bring up, as within the new trailer there are a couple of interesting little details that caught my eye. Things that I felt I'd seen before for the original Breath of the Wild. Well, from that game's early concept art. We know the team working on Breath of the Wild had a ton of different ideas for the game, and obviously not all of them could make it in. But with the DLC we did get for the game, we have seen that just because some ideas didn't make it in originally, doesn't mean that they are completely scrapped from being reused. The main thing to point to is the Master Cycle Zero, the motorbike we got in the DLC for Breath of the Wild after completing the new beast. This motorbike was originally shown in some early artwork for Breath of the Wild. It looked very different, but as you can see, the idea of having Link use a bike was something that was around for a long time and ended up working in the DLC. Because they've used old ideas that didn't originally make it into the base game of Breath of the Wild in DLC, I can really see them doing it again with the sequel. And so today, I want to go over a couple of things in this new trailer what seem to have been taken from concept art for Breath of the Wild. Talk about how they could work, and also go over a couple of ideas that could also happen within this game based off of other bits of concept art for Breath of the Wild. One of the most popular bits of concept art for Breath of the Wild is this artwork of Link, dressed in a more traditional outfit for the character with a green tunic and hat, but also equipped with this strange but interesting technology on his face and arm. This artwork shows that Link's arm would be able to transform into different weapons he could use, like the beetle seen in Skyward Sword, a bow and arrow, a hammer, and a cannon that shot bombs. And after the new trailer, I think this idea is coming back in a couple of different ways. We all know that the strange, mysterious green arm will be a big point within this game. At the moment, it's not confirmed exactly what it will do, but it certainly will be important. One idea of how this could work within the gameplay is that the arm will be able to use certain weapons or abilities like the runes from Breath of the Wild. There may even be a hint towards this within the new trailer, when we see Link use this new version of the Stasis rune. Only this time, he's not holding onto the Sheikah Slate, but instead using his right arm. The arm the glowing green hand grabbed onto, and also the arm which is wearing the mysterious technology within this concept art. Although the design is not the same as what was created in the concept art, the functionality of it seems to have been brought over for this new game, and changed a little to work with what was built up within the last game. Instead of being technology which could transform into different items, it now seems to be more magic based, and uses abilities close to what the runes were in the past game. That being said, the design of this strange item itself might not have been completely scrapped. Within the new trailer, we got a look at a new item from this game. This item looked to be some kind of flamethrower shooting out fire towards the enemy in the scene. And the design of it looks to be a head of a dragon. Again, not exactly the same as the concept art, but within that artwork, what seems to be the standard setting or normal look for this transforming arm looks close to a monster's head, the blue lights looking like teeth in a monster's mouth. The weapon looks to be attached to Link's shield, but it still gives off a very similar visual feeling of having it on his arm, especially with how he holds and uses it. Because this game seems to be going down a more magic route and away from the more technology-based game before, it makes sense to change the design to something a little bit more simple. And now this weapon looks much closer in design to the stone dragon heads found in the Zonai Forest of Faron, and less like Sheikah technology. A couple other little things in this artwork that could possibly play into the next game are the mask and Master Sword. In the trailer, whenever we see Link with his hair down, we never see his face. Maybe he could be wearing something on his face like a mask or eye patch that looks similar to what Link wears within this artwork. It might add to why we never saw his face, as there could be an important reason behind him wearing something like this in the story. With the Master Sword in this artwork, it seems to be broken. It's much shorter than what we normally see it like. In the first trailer for Breath of the Wild sequel, we see Link with the Master Sword, but within this new trailer, apart from the scene that takes place in the cave, we don't see it with him. It's possible that within this game, the Master Sword could somehow break or even be lost, and so Link can't use it. Or if it's broken, we might need to fix it along the lines of what we had to do in Skyward Sword. And saying the obvious connections between the sequel and Skyward Sword with the new Sky World, we could see things from that game also used within this one. And on the topic of the Sky Realm or Sky Islands, let's talk about Hyrule Castle. Since the first trailer for this game, the image of Hyrule Castle floating has been something that's created a lot of questions. And, well, we still have many questions, but with the floating islands seen in the new trailer, it does make a little bit more sense. One thing I realised back when the first trailer came out was the similarities between the floating castle and this image of a floating mountain. This idea to have floating islands return to this version of Hyrule seems to have been something thought about for quite a while. And you could even say the floating platforms in the Master Mode DLC could have been some kind of workaround for this idea to make it into the last game. But now, we finally get to see this idea brought to life in the way that they wanted. And there's another little detail about this image. Right at the top of the mountain, looking down at the land below, is Ganondorf. Obviously, Ganondorf wasn't in Breath of the Wild, but now, in its sequel, he will be. It seems Nintendo are really trying to work on bringing this idea to life in a new way. This time, instead of it being a floating mountain, it's Hyrule Castle that's floating, a much more important place. And with all the malice that's pushing Hyrule Castle up in the new trailer, I can very well see this being the location Ganon will be for most of the game. It's already pretty common for when Ganondorf is the final boss to have him waiting at the top of Hyrule Castle, so this really just seems perfect. Another little thing I wanted to mention before moving on was this bit of concept art for Skyloft from Skyward Sword. With Breath of the Wild sequel taking place partly in the sky, I thought I'd look to see if any artwork from Skyward Sword might look close from stuff we've seen in Breath of the Wild, and what we saw in its sequel's trailer. And there was one thing, this artwork of Skyloft. This was a very early design of how Skyloft could have looked, and when I saw it, I was instantly reminded of Hyrule Castle and the floating mountain. It's a very similar shape to both of them. So maybe from the start, Breath of the Wild was always planned to have a sky world that just simply never came to be until now. It could also explain why Nintendo always described this game as an open air game more than an open world game. And quickly, I want to talk about another thing not from Breath of the Wild artwork, but instead from Twilight Princess. When I was looking for Skyward Sword concept art that might have been used as inspiration, I slowly found myself looking at Twilight Princess artwork. And it wasn't long until I found this bit of artwork for Ganondorf. And I'm pretty sure you can tell what caught my eye with this piece. This gives off a very similar vibe to what we see happen to Link within the trailers with the green hand. And within the new trailer we even see Malice also covering Link's arm, and it looks very similar to what's happening in this bit of artwork. While we haven't seen anything to point to Ganondorf also having some type of similar power, I could see it happening. The hero and villain fighting one another with different variants of the same power. I don't really have much more to say on this one, it was just something that caught my eye, looked really cool, and I wanted to include it. Maybe you guys have some more ideas, if so leave them in the comments below. So let's move on to the last bit of Breath of the Wild concept art I want to talk about. Now, there isn't anything in the trailers that really looks like this or confirms this being something that we could see, but saying this game takes place largely in the sky, if Nintendo really wanted to use all those little ideas they couldn't put in the original game, now would be the best time. So, what bit of artwork am I talking about? You know, the one with the aliens. So, to be completely honest, I don't really see this one happening, but as the game is set in the sky and aliens have appeared in the series before, I think it'd be pretty funny to see them in this next game. Like the other things on this list, if included, it's very likely that they would change up the idea a little. Perhaps not having them be aliens, but maybe a group of strange sky creatures flying around on some old ancient flying machine. Maybe it could even be the now even more highly advanced Uka from Twilight Princess, still living in the sky but now travelling around it much more in a flying saucer. Or maybe it's just some old Sheikah scientist who's been living in the sky with their own homemade spaceship. It was mentioned that with the idea for aliens in Breath of the Wild, they could come down and take the cows, like what they did in Majora's Mask. So they could even just use this idea as a fun side quest. It may be a bit of a stretch, but I'd honestly find it pretty funny seeing Nintendo put aliens in a Zelda game again. And so, those are some things I saw from Breath of the Wild's concept art, taken and repurposed for its sequel. If you've been around my channel for a while, you might know that I'm a big fan of seeing what might have been in some of my favourite games through the concept art. So to see Nintendo not scrapping ideas from Breath of the Wild and now bringing them back in a new way for the sequel, it just really makes me happy to see. And I'm very excited to see even more possible connections to early ideas and concept art reused in this game. Thank you all for watching all the way to the end of today's video. If you want to check out some more Breath of the Wild 2 content from myself, I recently posted a video talking about possible time travel in the sequel. And if you want to hear me talk about more Zelda concept art, I recommend checking out this video going over how Sheik was once planned for The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Thank you all again for watching to the end of today's video. I hope you've all enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so you never miss an upload from me, and I'll see you all in the next video.